Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Welcome to the community conversation. This is a hujjat initiative. In these regular conversations with individuals, we will explore their struggle, achievement, courage, and disappointment that shaped and guided their faith, family, and community. Today we have with us a well-known personality, highly respected doctor, a specialist in advanced medical imaging technique to help diagnose and treat cancer. He is with us today to share his life journey and experiences. He is Professor Anwar Padhani. Welcome, Professor. I will call you Anwar Bhai if you don't mind.
Okay.
Professor Anwar Padhani is an internationally recognized oncological radiologist at Mount Vernon Cancer Centre, London, UK. He is a professor at the Institute of Cancer Research, London, and a trustee of the International Cancer Imaging Society, as well as a co-chair of the International Prostate PI-RADS committee. In 2012, he was awarded a personal chair as Professor of Cancer Imaging by the Institute of Cancer Research, London, for his research, teaching, and for collaborations. He has delivered over 450 lectures, including several plenary talks at scientific and educational meetings, and received several educational awards, as well as ICIS 2017 Gold Medal. He has published many citable articles, including chapters in textbooks, case reports, commentaries and editorials, scientific journal reviews, and scientific articles in well-recognized medical journal. Welcome, Anwar Bhai, again. So, Salamun Alaikum. I have to say that this is very impressive achievements. I think I have to ask you here, what drives you and what is your work ethics? Because this is really impressive. Do share with us.
So what drives me? What drives me is not going to work any day of the week. Believe it or not.
Really?
This is what I say to my children. If you can find a passion in your life that you can engage with and that you happen to get paid for.
Right. Yeah. I'm getting an understanding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then you never go to work. You always look forward to your day. But you have to find a passion that drives you. And for me, it wasn't cancer imaging initially.
Really?
But no. Over the last 15, 20 years, yes. But before that, I was much more technical. And then I was fortunate enough to go to America on a fellowship at a place called Johns Hopkins, which is at one of the top universities, hospitals in the USA. And there I met some really high-powered people. And I noticed their passion for their subject, which was infectious. And then when I came back, I worked at the Royal Marsden in South London, which is a cancer hospital. So as soon as I came back from America, they called me up and said, do you want to come and work for us? So we moved from north to south. And I worked there for 7 years or so, before coming to the Cancer Centre at Mount Vernon, which is in North London, which is not far from here.
Right.
And that's a cancer hospital. And so that's how I developed this specialism in cancer. Initially, breast cancer was the area where that was most interested in. But over the last 15 years, I would say it was more prostate cancer, because that is a Cinderella specialty. Now, of course, it's right up there amongst the cancers that are recognized.
That's right, yeah.
But anyway, and I happen to work in a good environment where they're very supportive.
Right. So I mean, just want to go back.
Sure.
The passion.
Okay.
So it's not really anything else but passion
Yes.
that interests you
Yes.
to actually move out of the bed
Yeah, exactly.
and go.
Exactly. I mean, every day I go to work, I look forward to it.
That's right. Now that's important, isn't
Yeah.
it? And so that drives you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And every night when I come back,
Yeah.
after namaz, dinner, etc., I go back to work.
Really?
Yeah.
So that passionate?
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's interesting, because I think if you have the passion about anything, then that's not work.
No,
Okay.
it's true.
I want to now sort of ask you about your research, the current research, if you're doing anything currently, because I think that's important for us to understand.
Yes.
So what are you involved with currently?
Okay. So, I mean, so in terms of where I put my intellectual energy rather than my work energy, right? So in terms of intellectual energy, I'm involved in this international committee called PI-RADS.
What is it called?
PI-RADS.
Right.
So it's the Prostate International Radiological and Diagnostic System.
Right.
It's an international.
I called it PI-RADS.
That's
Okay.
right, PI-RADS. So it's a system which I was one of the founding members of.
Really?
Yeah, I was. I developed 2 of the 3 techniques that we use nowadays, and that became an international standard, and that is now the standard way of diagnosing prostate cancer in somebody who has a suspected disease. So I'm now the current chairman, but have been part of the committee for probably about 10 or 11 years now. And so driving that forward, making the standard international, making sure the standards stay high, training, how that feeds into artificial intelligence, training computers to detect what we see, working out how well it works, where it doesn't work. That is, I would say, in terms of my intellectual things that I do, it's probably about 50%. The rest is on an area of research which is largely neglected by radiologists, and that is how do you keep people as well as possible for as long as possible once you have lost control of the tumor, right?
That's very interesting. Yeah.
So you can imagine you have a prostate cancer.
Yeah.
You have a first treatment. In a lot of people, it comes back, right? And then that leads to a escalator, which eventually leads to death. And you cure some people along the way, but you don't cure a lot of people along the way. So we diagnose roughly about 30,000 cancers in the UK per year, and about 10,000 people die. So along the way, we lose people, right? So then the question is, how do you postpone that death?
Extend it, you mean? Extend the life, yeah.
Well, see, I mean, you don't die for at least 15 to 20 years. But what we want to do is not necessarily, because if on average you are 65, 70 by the time you get it, you will die at 85, 90.
But of cancer?
Of cancer, yes.
Right, okay.
So, but the journey is a turbulent one, right? So although it decreases your longevity, and you've seen some cases in the press, right? Like Bill Turnbull died recently of prostate cancer. I mean, his death was premature, but on average it tends to kill you slowly over 10 to 15 years. And the idea is, how do you monitor the treatment so you keep the person as well as possible for as long as possible? So your health doesn't decline and die, right? It's how do you stay well, and then when you die quickly. You see what I mean? So
that's the best position to... Yeah.
Correct, so that you keep the quality.
Right.
And then hopefully you postpone death as well, right? Because of treatments.
Sure. Yeah.
Now remember, imaging doesn't cure patients, right? It's treatments that cure patients. So what we want to do is we want to use imaging to titrate treatments in a way that helps the survival.
So to make the treatment most effective?
Effective.
Yeah.
Well, that's right. It's using the right treatment, the right patient, for the right time and for the right duration.
Right.
So it's 4 things.
That's very important, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That way you keep a person well, but and then when they die quickly, as it were. They don't die slowly over 20 years, which is what we see happening, right? You see people get into bed and then they're, moribund, and it goes on and on and on, and the family are all suffering. But if you can keep them well for as long as possible, then so it's how you use imaging and something called biomarkers. Biomarkers are not only just imaging, but other things like blood tests, like your genes, urine samples, how you combine all of these to tell you where the patient is on their journey.
Is this coming together, though? I mean, it's such an interesting concept that you have described, and I'm sure a lot of listeners will be very interested in how you have put it.
Yeah.
Because, Anwar Bhai, the thing is, when we hear about cancer, the immediate psychological effect is that death is the next thing.
Yeah,
but it's not necessarily the case, and
no,
particularly the way you've described it.
So everybody's going to die, right?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So that's that we know. And you're right. There is an association between the diagnosis and death, but it's not straightforward. It's certainly not straightforward because we cure so many patients along the way.
All right.
Like, for example, if you took melanoma, right? Melanoma 6 years ago. Stage 4 melanoma, 12 months you're dead. Dead. That's it. And nothing we could do. Now, we are curing about 85%.
Really?
Curing. That means it's gone forever.
Stage 4?
Stage 4. So then you think, how did that happen? Right? Well, that happened because new therapies are coming in, right? And for melanoma, it turns out that you can manipulate your immune system to fight the cancer.
Okay.
Yeah. And now that strategy does not seem to work for prostate cancer, right? It doesn't work that well for breast cancer, but it works
for melanoma.
Melanoma, for kidney cancer, it works really well. So it's finding out what are the key triggers, but knowing what treatment to use at the right time for the right patient. You see what I mean? That's in that concept.
How I have to, if you can explain to people.
Yeah.
We've used stage 4.
Yeah.
So that's the last stage, I take it.
No, it isn't.
Oh, it isn't?
No. Stage 4
so
just
explain
means,
stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4.
Okay. So stage 4 means it is spread.
Right, okay.
Right? So yes, that is the last stage. But stage 4 does not mean death. It just means how far it has spread from the body.
And can you come
back
back from
Oh,
there?
Absolutely. Absolutely, you can.
I was always, when somebody mentions stage 4, that's it.
Exactly. Yeah,
but there is that reining back.
Yeah, you can. In some cancers, you can completely reverse it.
Okay,
in some cancers, you can't, right? For brain cancers, you can't.
Right.
For pancreas, you can't. Yeah.
So how has your research on imaging? I mean, it's revolutionized things, by the way, because as you know, when we have CT scan and all that, it's three-dimensional, and the surgeons are immediately ready to understand it far better than the two-dimensional X-rays that we used to have. So the imaging part has played a crucial role in many ways in surgeons taking a bigger risk, presumably, because they understand the anatomy better?
So actually, we've gone way past CT scans. I mean, that's
so what's the
1970s.
Is it so?
See, so at the moment, we are in this era of what's called functional and molecular imaging.
Right.
Okay, so we're not looking at... So CT scans are clearly still important, right? Because it tells you physically where the tumor is. But actually, the more important thing is what is happening inside the cancer.
Okay,
so in other words, so that means, so for example, knowing what, if you have a prostate cancer, for example, what are the molecules on the surface of the... If you can identify a subgroup of patients that have these particular molecules, then you can design a bomb, so an antibody,
Right.
with a chemotherapy at the end. It's like a bomb, right? So
Yeah,
the
yeah.
antibody goes, catches,
Right.
then goes into the cell, explodes, and kills the cell.
And that is important to do.
That's important to do because all you do is kill the cell. You don't hit the surroundings.
That's right. The healthy tissues remain. Yeah.
Correct. So that's called theragnostics. You see something, diagnostic, and then you treat what you see.
What's it called?
Theragnostics.
Theragnostic.
Yeah.
Therapy and diagnosis.
And
Okay,
diagnosis.
right,
Correct. So that relies on looking at the chemical composition of cells, what's on their surface, how the metabolism is working on the inside, how one cell is related to another cell in the tumor. How packed it is. So this era of what we call functional and molecular imaging is the current era. And that is transforming the way we think about cancer.
So as I understand it, and in my days when I was being educated in a medical school, I can tell you the way we understood cancer was in a very general way, and the therapy was always attack everything and so kill off the... Now it's more specific.
Oh yeah, much more specific.
And even more targeted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So we are in this area of targeted therapeutics.
Right.
Now targeted doesn't mean, here it is. That's not targeted.
Yeah.
Targeted is we're going down into inside the cell. Okay, what is the target inside the cell? Right?
Okay.
And how do you attack that target? So for example, if you have a type of breast cancer called HER2-positive breast cancer, which is a type of breast cancer, 35% of women roughly will have that kind of cancer.
Yeah.
Now it's interesting that type of cancer, by using targeted therapies, what we now do is we cure, I would say, 70%. Right? And when one of my relatives had it, it was like success rate was 30%. Now, 10, 15 years later, we're already at 70% cure.
70% cure.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's by understanding the target, how the target works, what it does, when it becomes activated. These kind of, the molecular mechanisms are important. And we can image those.
Right.
We can say, this is
and this is where your technology is helping?
Exactly.
MashaAllah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Anwar, the other thing I want to say, so for our audience basically, that look, behind this clinician is work that people like you do to really help the cancer patient like that.
Correct.
Because clinicians will only clinically assist when they've got the ready-made treatment plan and what to do. But behind that is all your work that allows them to do that.
So what you have to remember is, so when you develop a technique, so many years ago, 20 years ago, I used to do work on animals, animal tumors, and human tumors at the same time. So we were exploring whether what we saw in an animal...
Is that your metastasis work?
Correct. Yeah. So it's the initial work that we were saying, okay, if I use this drug, this is how an animal's tumor responds.
Okay.
Does the drug work the same in a human? Right? And it turns out that there are not that many animal tumors. There are lots of animals that you can give tumors to, but it's the same tumor in each animal.
Can I just stop you here? Because you made a very important expression here. There are not many animals with tumors. We introduce tumors to them.
Correct.
Is it because they have a very natural lifestyle that they're not getting the
No,
tumors?
that's not what I mean. No, that's not what I mean.
That's another philosophy.
That's a different...
We don't want to go into that.
No, I don't. So, the thing is, so we can take humans' tumors and we can put them in animals.
Right.
And the success rate of these tumors growing in animals is very low.
Right.
Right? But every now and again, we'll put one tumor in an animal and it will grow. Then you know that tumor in that will grow in that animal. But it's only one tumor. Then you can put it in another animal, another animal, another animal. but they are all the same tumors in different animals.
Right.
But every human tumor is different.
Is that so?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So if you have let's say pancreatic cancer, if you do the genes, every single one is different. They are from the pancreas, yes. In other words, the origin is the same, but you look at the genes, you look at the proteins, they're different. And
So
that's
in effect, every cancer is a different cancer.
absolutely. And that's why when you can cure animal tumors easily.
Because that thing is not there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so you have to do this thing called the animal experiment, then you have to do the human experiment. And what you find is that the humans, only about 5% will respond when you have 100% response in an animal. So that's called early translational work.
Right.
So you get an idea, you try it in both, and you look at the animal and you look at the human and see if they are responding in the same way. So it's called early translational work. And then what I've been doing, so I did a lot of that for many years, but what I found with that was not satisfactory, because I was not really helping patients. I was really helping develop drugs.
Okay.
And I found that and drugs fail. They fail all the time. I was speaking to a professor from the Cleveland Clinic just a couple of weeks ago. He says he spent 20 years developing drugs. Only 3 have successfully gone into humans.
Okay.
So I thought, you spent
So
20
much
years
time,
of your life and 3 drugs succeed. Now, of course, those 3 will help thousands of patients.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So then the question is, what can I do to help patients?
Yeah.
And if every one of my drugs is going to fail, then my role is very small. So what I did was I said, okay, what can I do at a later stage? So if you start to use it in humans, how can I help make the treatment better? That's
Right.
called late translational stage.
Okay.
So those techniques and methods that I learned, right?
From your earlier work.
From my earlier work, how can I now use that in humans in a more generalizable way so that I can help every patient?
Okay.
So that's why I developed a technique called diffusion imaging. So diffusion imaging was a technique that we used in the brain, but wasn't used in the body. And at one of my conferences, I saw one Japanese person trial it. He moved it from the brain. He used it in the neck, and it worked in the neck. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. He'd done 5 people, so I came back and I did it on 1,000 people. So it was like so trying out new techniques in different people and saying, okay, this is where it helps. And the sweet spot turned out that it worked really well for the bones. And
Really?
yeah, the bones is a big issue
Yeah.
with breast cancer and prostate cancer.
That's right. Yeah.
So if you take prostate cancer, when the tumor has spread, 70% is only in the bone. In breast cancer, 55% is only in the bone. If you look at lung cancer, 30% is only in the bone. So there are these huge numbers of patients who have disease in their bone, and there's CT scans don't work. CT scans literally do not work.
They don't show up or what?
They don't show.
Really, I didn't
They
know
don't
that.
show. But when you use these new techniques, you see them.
Right. But are they using it now?
Oh yeah. I mean, at Mount Vernon, we've done over 15,000 patients.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. Well, Marsden, Europe, not in America, interestingly.
Why is that?
They don't get paid for it. Right? Okay, in
So
America,
all is related to money.
medicine is a business. Ultimately.
I'll come to that if we get time.
Ultimately.
But Doctor, I was going to ask you that question, but you replied it so wonderfully well, because I had a question here, absolutely that type, where I was going to ask you to explain it in your own way to the general public, and you've explained it so well.
Yeah.
I found it very interesting. Now, I have this question. You are a professor of cancer imaging at the renowned Institute of Cancer Research, London.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how this institute work and ultimately benefits the patients? Okay. So, you know, because we hear you're a member of this and a member of that, but you're a member of this very renowned institute. Right. So tell us how it works. And
okay. So what you have to remember is University of London.
And also at the same time, you can combine it, what your role is in all this thing, okay?
Yeah. So what you have to remember is the Institute of Cancer Research is a partner organization to the Royal Marsden. Okay. So it's like the academic arm of the Royal Marsden. Royal Marsden is an NHS hospital. The Institute of Cancer Research is one of the biggest biomedical research institutes, certainly in the UK and also in Europe. So, but it's the academic arm of this academic hospital. So just like University College Hospital is a hospital, and University College London is the college.
Right, the college of that hospital.
Correct. Yeah. And similarly for Imperial, Hammersmith and Charing Cross are the hospitals.
The Imperial is the
university. Yeah. Correct. So that's how it works.
Right.
But this is exclusively focused on cancer.
Okay.
Whereas these other institutes have engineering and other things as well.
That's
but
right.
This is focused on engineering. So when I was first appointed, I was appointed by the Institute of Cancer Research to make that bridge between the research and taking that research into the clinic in the hospital.
All right.
You see,
right,
so that's how. So that's where my research was initially, and then after I moved from there to here, what I did was I brought the techniques that I learned there to Mount Vernon. Right?
Okay.
But I maintained that collaboration. So the methods of analysis, the support of physicists and computer scientists that you need when you're developing a new technique. So I maintained that collaboration, and a lot of my, many papers were the research papers were done with the Institute of Cancer Research, ICR, and so I kept that going for about 15 years, and then what they did was they gave me a personal chair.
Oh, at the institute?
Yeah, correct. So a personal chair is, they say, because you've done so much work with us, and we recognize the contribution that you've made, we will make you a professor at our place.
Right.
So that is to keep fostering the relationships with them, and I still, have much less of a relationship nowadays than before. And so that's how I got the personal chair.
Okay.
Now the ICR, the Institute of Cancer Research, has a big biomedical laboratory. And they do lots of drug development and early phase clinical trials and late phase clinical trials, and we take part in some of those trials at Mount Vernon. But my particular relationship was with the Department of Physics and MRI in particular.
Right.
So that's how the collaboration started.
And then a specific role has been generated and given up a personal chair.
Yes, correct.
For that.
Correct,
Okay,
yes.
That's understood. Okay, now I want to come back to your own sort of childhood.
Okay.
After knowing all that.
Okay.
So where were you born?
I was born in a place called Fort Portal in Uganda.
Fort Portal. Yeah.
Fort Portal.
Year?
1958.
58. So young.
65. I'm 65.
Yeah, but still young. I mean, in the scheme of things, it's still young.
Yes.
So, so just talk to us about your birthplace, what you know, and parents, and perhaps if you can sort of share with us that.
Sure. Okay, so I was born in...
And where did your parents or grandparents come from and all that? Yeah.
Okay, so Bapa, my grandfather, was born in Maria.
Right.
And moved,
that's in Kutch, between Kutch and Gujarat. Yeah. Kutch,
and he moved to East Africa when the railroads were being built.
1920s.
No, something like that. Yeah, it was.
Before that.
Before that, he was born in 1903. He was born in 1903.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he went to Uganda, followed the railroads, and ended up in Toro.
Okay.
Or Fort Portal. And then, so my dad was born, Roshan Padhani was born in Uganda in 1929.
Right.
Then Bapa sent Dad and all the other siblings back to India for education.
Okay.
And then after they had finished their schooling, they came back
Uganda.
back to Uganda because Bapa was still there.
And he had a business presumably?
No, it was a business, but it was like a small shop.
Okay, right.
Yeah. But the boys had gone back and they came back.
Right.
And then in Fort Portal, we had a bakery, we had a petrol station, a cement factory, the theatre. So they did various sorts of
all
business.
that businesses were there?
Oh yeah, they were all there. Yeah, they were all there. Yeah. And that's where I was born. And then the family split to Kampala and Fort Portal. So Askar Bhai, my Roshan Bhai's eldest brother, elder brother, not eldest, elder brother, opened a travel agency in Kampala.
Okay.
And so then the businesses were both in Fort Portal and in Kampala. And then the travel agency then started charter flights between Nairobi, Dar es Salaam, Kampala and London. And it used to be called East African Holidays Limited.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Because a lot of the Ugandans came
Via that. Yeah.
So what we did was we used to charter flights. Charter flights between Nairobi, Kampala, Dar es Salaam and London. And it used to be mostly students, but cut price fares and that sort of thing. So a lot of business went on there. And then subsequently, so Askar Bhai moved to London.
Right.
And then my
Opened
dad,
up.
Kampala.
Yeah.
And then they were like, one would go up and down. Sometimes Dad would be here, sometimes Askar Bhai would be there, and vice versa. And the airline business was.
So when did Askar Bhai come to UK?
So probably about 60. I'd like to say 68, but I'm pretty sure it was before that.
Before that.
I think it was. Certainly wasn't 66. So I think it would have been about 67, 68-ish.
I think around 60, if I remember rightly from Dad,
Yeah.
I think around 66 he was already here, but
Yeah.
I may not be.
Yeah, because there was the Ramsi Bhai was here,
Right, yeah.
right? And so the Ramsi, not Fida Bhai, Hasni Bhai or Fida Bhai, I'm not sure. I think it's Hasni Bhai, although I get Hasni Bhai and Fida Bhai mixed up sometimes. I think Hasni Bhai was here. So Hasni Bhai and Askar Bhai are cousins, first cousins.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
So their mother and my grandfather were brother and sister. Anyway, so he encouraged us to come. So
Where?
To London.
To UK, okay. But the period of 1972 expulsion,
Yes.
were you there?
No.
So
We
you
don't-
had already moved out?
I already moved out.
Where?
So we were in Sudbury at the time. So we had come for schooling. So,
Here?
Yeah, here. So in just about
So
three,
before 72 you were already here?
So Askar Bhai was already here with his
And
kids.
you came for schooling here?
And I came with my mom and my sisters.
Ah, right.
And then 3 months later the expulsion took place.
Ah,
So we were
all right.
already,
So you were already here. Okay.
we were already here. We had settled. We had a house in.
How old were you here then, when you came for?
Well, I would have been about 11.
11.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was your first impression of UK?
It was cold.
Everyone says that.
It was cold.
Was it a winter time?
Because it was August probably when we came.
Yeah,
You
but
know,
you know how August here is
Exactly.
compared to there.
But, so it wasn't cold, but I mean I didn't find the place welcoming.
No?
No.
Oh, all
Terrible,
right, okay.
terrible. But the person who we bought the house from was a school teacher,
Okay.
Mrs. Jagger, and she took an interest in the children because she was a school teacher.
Right.
So Dad, asked her, where do I put the kids into school? So she said, Farah needs to go there, this one needs to go there, Anwar needs to go there, that's cool. So, she helped us arrange,
Get the right schooling and
the
all
right
that,
school,
yeah.
yes, and because she was a school teacher. And then initially she gave us a lot of help, not only finding us places, but, helping us with things that we didn't know much about, because our English wasn't great.
Right.
I mean, we had some English, but it wasn't to that high level.
No.
And then we settled in here, and then of course all the other Ugandans came.
Yeah.
So my uncles on mother's side came.
So you did end up, as I understand it,
Yeah.
In India.
Yes.
What was the rationale there? How did you end up there?
So when I came when I was 11, I didn't have the language.
Right.
So I was already behind by the time I was 13.
Really?
Oh yeah, I was way back because, there were, my first year my first class was trigonometry, and I was going, what the hell?
What's trigonometry?
Exactly. Because we had never been taught.
Isn't it funny that all that imaging work is all physics?
Exactly. Well, so I fell behind. Number one, but I did very well at O levels. I got the top grades. It turns out in my class that year, I got 10 O levels, and that was in.
That was in England, right?
That was in England. Yeah. That was in '75. That was unheard of, right?
Okay.
And because it was Dad, you have to study, and then I actually got into a very good school for secondary, for my A levels, and I got 4 A levels. So I was a little bit behind, but I caught up quite quickly.
Okay.
But when I applied for medical school, and I only applied for medical school because my friend Hiten was doing it, right?
Your friend Hiten?
Yeah, I have a friend called Hiten, and I still am in touch with Hiten Tucker. I still keep in touch with him. But, what do you know what you're going to do, right? But he was very clued on, and I just wanted to be in the same place that he was, right?
Right.
So he was doing medicine. I said, okay, I'll do medicine.
Really?
And Dad always used to say, you should either become a doctor, accountant, the usual immigrant things, right?
Right, yeah.
Lawyer, that
very
sort of
high
stuff.
sort of marker.
Yeah, but Dad was like that, right? Anyways, but he would push all his kids.
Yeah.
He pushed all his kids.
Yeah. I think Farah became dentist. Yeah.
Exactly. Anyway, so then when I applied for medical school, I didn't get a place. Right? And then it was what was going on? And then there was I don't know if you remember, there was a Pakistani Nobel Prize winner in physics called Abdul Salam.
Yes, I remember.
Nuclear scientist.
That's right, yeah.
He
became president of India.
No.
It's not Abdul Salam?
No. He was the founder of the program in Pakistan that developed the atomic bomb.
Oh yes, it's a different one.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
So
I got
but
mixed up.
he was a professor at Imperial. So,
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Dad and his connections got me to his door. He made some calls, and what we realized is that they put me under the foreigners pot, not the home.
Okay.
And so it was like, why did you put, I'm a home student, I have a British passport, qualifications here, etc., etc. But, there was a lot of racism.
At that time.
So much. When we were kids, it was just terrible. I mean, you don't see it now, but in those days.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
It was all. And then, so Dad said, this is not going to work here. Do you really want to do this? And I went, yeah, I want to do this. But by that time, I was 17. I said, yeah, I want to do this. So he said, okay, let's go. And he made some calls, and then we went to a college in India, which was the 5th best college in India at that time.
Where was it?
It's called Kastuba Medical College, or KMC. It's in the south. But it was one of the few colleges that was recognized by the GMC for full registration. So you go there and you can come straight back and you can get straight into the system here. It was such a high level. There were only 5 or 6 colleges at that time that were recognized by the UK. So I went there, and the course was 5-6 years. and I came back. By that time, I had to re-sit an exam, but the exam was easy to sit. And then I got into the system that way.
So then you progressed from there.
Correct.
After you qualified, as I understand it,
Yeah.
you then eventually ended up with Johns Hopkins.
Yeah, so I came here, and I initially couldn't get a job. So I got licensed, but I couldn't get a job. And there was a Pakistani guy at Royal Free called Paresh Dandona. He was a Rhodes Scholar from Pakistan, no, from India. He was a Rhodes Scholar from India, who was at Royal Free. And so I worked for him for 18 months.
Under him?
Under him, not paid.
Yeah. Oh.
Not paid. But the only thing was, I'll come and work for you. I want to have clinical responsibility, but you have to write me a good, referral.
Ah, all right.
So I published some articles as well, because he was very bright. So he got me involved in research, and that's how I got interested in the research side of it.
Right, okay.
And
So
then
it opened up a vista for you.
it opened up a door.
Yeah.
And then I got a house job at Cambridge.
Cambridge University?
University, yeah.
Right.
So then I went to the Addenbrooke's Hospital as a registrar. No, as a houseman. And so I went through that system. And then, because I did quite well because I was hardworking, etc., etc. And then calls were made, and then they said, "What do you want to do?" And then I said, "I want to do radiology" at that time. Then there was a guy called Adrian Dixon, who was the professor there. So I went to see Adrian. He said, "You want a job?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Start tomorrow."
That's at Cambridge now?
That's at Cambridge. So I stayed in Cambridge for 3 years. Then I moved to London after that.
So how did you end up with Hopkins?
So Johns Hopkins. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I came to London, I was at Guy's.
Right.
And Guy's and Johns Hopkins
Oh, they had
are pair.
Right, okay.
And by that time, I'd already taken my American exams.
Oh, right, okay.
So because I'd learnt that Britain was not a good place to be in as a doctor, as an Asian.
All right.
So I had already taken all my American exams. So I already had them in my pocket. So when the opportunity came up, I said, there was a year opportunity. I said, "I'd like to take that opportunity. By the way, here are my exams. I've already passed them." And they went, "Sure."
Right.
And I just...
Now I have it's interesting question here, because I mean, you ended up back in the UK.
Yeah.
I would have expected you to stay in America. I mean, there the money was very good.
Money was
so,
great.
but why did you sort of end up here?
Yeah. So that's an interesting story. So we went over there, and we had one son, Shahid, and we were expecting another baby. And then at the end of that year, the opportunity came to take on a permanent position.
At Johns Hopkins?
At Johns Hopkins.
Right.
So, and I'd met some people that are really at the top of their game. Right? I mean, they're talking about the top radiologists in the world. And then, and see how they think, And I was thinking, well, actually, they're not that much better than me. I could easily achieve that.
Okay. Confident?
Yeah, because if you're a fellow, so that's a fellowship position.
Yeah.
If you're a fellow, you already are at the top of your game.
Right.
And then you see these people who are, leaders and thought leaders and key opinion leaders, and you think, well, that could be me, because I can see what they're like, right? I can see on a day-to-day basis. I can see.
That's a very interesting way of looking at it.
Well, that's why I'm quite philosophical this way. So anyway.
Okay.
So I was offered this position.
Yeah.
And then Femida, my wife, and I said, "Okay, do we want to stay?" Right. And then what would we give up?
Yeah.
And so the key thing was that we would have to give up our Khoja identity. Not Muslim identity, Khoja identity.
By staying in the United States.
Yeah, because America has a way of getting into your house. It's very interesting. I met a Belgium guy who was coming back from America back to Belgium. You know, I was speaking to him, and I asked him why he was coming back. This was about a year before. And he said, America has a way of getting into your house, and you have to be willing to accept it.
Right.
Otherwise, you never integrate.
Oh, interesting.
Right? And that was, and I mean, it was, you know, and I spoke to him, you know, quite seriously, because I was quite serious, you see, about staying. Because I could see my income potential would have been huge.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, nowadays, a radiologist's starting salary is £500,000, a starting salary.
In America?
In America. Starting salary.
Yeah.
In those days, it was probably about 180,000 to 220,000 starting salary.
A lot of money at the time. Yeah.
Exactly. So then the question was, do we stay for the money, right? And then, so, you know, I had this discussion with Dad, and Dad said, well, it's, you know, it's not as if we didn't have money in the house. You know, we had security. We were not first generation immigrants by that time, right? We were I was always like second generation in that sense. And so that was, so it wasn't about the money. For me, it was never about the money. It was always about whether I would be able to develop intellectually. That's number one. Number two, am I willing to give up my identity?
That mattered to you?
That is, to this day, it still matters to me the most.
You must read my book then.
I have read your book. I've got it on my shelf, next to my bed. I've got it next to my bed.
I'm writing another one.
Are you? Okay,
Yeah,
I'll buy that one as well. I bought 5 copies of yours and gave four
inshallah.
Anyway, so because to me identity was important, and because I'd been, you know, I'd been to Cambridge, I'd been to America, I'd been to India, you know, and I was away, and that's when you realize how important identity is. And you know, and Dad was very much into the mosque, and you know,
he contributed quite a lot in in even the current our London Jamaat. He was a trustee, wasn't he?
First trustee.
First trustee.
If you look at the signatories of the first charter,
so
I think he's like number 3 or number 4.
All right.
Hasni Bhai, my dad, Mullah Asghar, there was Habib Bhai. There's something like 6 or 7 trustees.
These were sort of pioneering at that time. Yeah.
I still have the documents at home.
You must share it with me when you get it.
Yeah, it is there.
Yeah.
It's not in my house; it's at his house.
Yeah.
It's still there.
Right.
But anyway, so that was it. So it was about identity. And Dad said, look, you'll make enough money while you're here, right? But at least here you have a supportive family structure, and you know, Britain will not get into your house that much because there's a community. Whereas what we noticed is when we were in the States, if we wanted to do Muharram, then we used to have to drive 250 miles to Allentown to attend a majlis and then drive back.
Yeah.
You know, and that would never work.
Here it's different, totally different.
It's on the corner, right?
Yeah.
And in those days, of course, there was no internet and stuff like that, right? So anyway, so it was a very conscious decision. Okay.
But do you feel that your dad's advice at that time mattered so much to you?
Yeah. I mean, the thing that drove me, drove me, and probably still drives me, even though he's now passed away, is what would he say?
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you sort of imagine now, what would my dad say here?
Exactly.
So has he been your friend as well, as you sort of move along? Dad as well as your friend, or?
No, just Dad.
You always had Dad?
Dad, yeah.
And mattered what he
mattered.
said?
Yeah, it mattered. Because, I mean, because my relationship with my dad was never like a friend.
No.
It was like dad, son
and dad.
Yeah. But I always knew that he always...
Did you have sort of an insight into things?
Did he have insight? Did I have insight?
Did he?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it is very...
insightful sort of.
Yeah, he's very philosophical.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like for example, at 65, 67, he stopped working.
How did you feel when you sort of achieved what you have achieved? Well,
I'll tell you, he never found out.
passed away.
No,
Huh?
that was the tragedy. So, you know, it's interesting. So at one stage when I was just being an academic, right?
Right.
My sister had a car, crashed my car. And so I looked in my bank account, I had £10,000.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd been working at that time for 7 years, right? So I went to Dad and said, so by this time, of course, I'm 30, I'm 35 or something like that. And I go to him and said, Dad, I need some money to buy a car.
All right.
And I've only got £10,000. And he says, he wrote me a check, gave me £10,000. And he says, when are you going to stop playing?
When are you going to stop playing?
Playing.
Uh-huh.
Because my academic work, right, as far as he was concerned, that wasn't, you know, he's a typical Gujarati guy, right? You measure your success by the size of your bank balance,
Right.
not by other achievements. But he was always like that, because you know he's a first-generation immigrant, right? I mean, you know, he was never educated, but he made sure every one of his children was educated.
Right.
But his metric of success was your bank balance. And then, so I'd say, oh, I made this much money this year. You go, oh, that's good, you know. But if I would say, so when I became professor, I went to tell him, right? Because before that, it didn't make any difference. And I could have been a professor years before, but I only wanted to be a professor at the University of London.
Really?
Because you know, nobody cares if you're a professor of University Hertfordshire. Honestly, nobody cares.
University of London, name mattered.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah. For me, it mattered. For
Right,
me, it mattered.
okay.
Because it's interesting, when you become a professor and you meet other professors, the first question they ask you is, you know what?
Yeah.
Where is your chair?
Okay, right.
If you say, I don't know, Welling Garden City or someplace like that, okay, fine. You know what I mean? But if you say you are from the
Institute.
University of London,
Yeah. Mattered.
then it's a completely, then, you know, then you are basically Harvard, Yale, Stanford, you know, that kind of league.
So how did Dad, you said that he didn't find out?
He didn't find out because by that time he had demented.
Oh.
So he was alive, but he didn't understand. So I went to tell him. And all he was blank.
Really? Oh. And it mattered to you that
It mattered to me.
Yeah. What about Mum?
Yeah. So Mum died early.
Oh, really?
Yeah. She was watching TV.
What happened?
Who knows?
That must have been quite a tragic time for you as well.
Yeah, it was, because we never found out why she died. And I didn't let them do a postmortem.
No.
So in a sense, we never found out. But on her death certificate says acute myocardial infarction. I'm sure it wasn't. I'm sure it wasn't. But what it was, I don't know. I think
that also, sorry, go on. Yeah.
It's probably like an acute arrhythmia, which is, you know, which happens. I mean, you know, as a doctor, you know it happens.
So dementia and the passing away of Mum did also shape your life afterwards.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
How many children have you got now?
3.
3. Wife comes from which family?
So Femida is from the Jamal Walji family. So
Yes,
her
quite
father,
prominent in Uganda.
Yeah, so Pyarali Walji is
That's right.
her father.
Yeah.
Shiraz, you know,
Shiraz, his brother. Yeah.
His brother.
Yeah.
He was president of the Jamaat.
That's right, in Kampala. Yeah.
And he's still
also Dar es Salaam as well.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, he's very active in the.
Yeah, I think he's currently doing a project for World Federation.
Correct. Yes. So he's always telling me to get involved in mosque stuff, and I'm going, I'm not sure.
So you are involved, but in an indirect way. I think.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I don't, because there's there's too much politics. But I help in the background.
Right.
I help in the
I
background.
know that. Yeah.
So a lot of community members will approach me about stuff, and then I will.
Yeah, in fact, you do advise the cancer subcommittee that Hujjat Jamaat has, and I think it's so nice, so good that you are there to advise them, and also I know for a fact that you advise people who approach you.
Yeah.
And so these are your sort of very good community sort of help that you do from your skills that you have.
Yeah, I mean, so people come home, and they'll want who's the best person for this, and who's the best person for that, and because I have such extensive
wide-ranging
connections. Yeah. Not so much in the community, but outside.
That's right.
So I can tell you, who the best person for any particular, if like somebody asked me, who's the best person in the UK for hair loss?
You would know?
No. If I don't know, I have a way of finding out.
Okay.
You see what I mean? That's the important. It's
That's interesting.
Because I get clients from all over the world, right?
Yeah.
I get princes and American businessmen and.
As your patients, or or recommended by someone to talk to you. Or?
Well, I mean, when you're a high net, there are people who are very high net worth.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So we're talking hundreds of millions of pounds wealth. And these people often have special physicians.
Okay, okay.
And these special physicians will seek out the top specialists in any particular area, right?
That's how you sort of come in.
So but then you get to know the physicians. So you should say...
So that's the networking now.
That's networking, right? So, so if you say, I need somebody, who's the best person in the world for the left toe, fifth toe, I'll ring this guy up and say, who's the best person? And he'll tell me.
Right.
From
his experience.
His experience. I mean, I know several of these people, right?
Yeah, okay.
And so, I mean, it's interesting. So I'll tell you a story. There was a guy who was coming from, an American who'd been to safari. He's flying back, and he calls his physician in Los Angeles and says, my son's got a fever. I'm landing in London in 3 hours. I want to see a doctor.
Okay.
That guy calls me at 6 o'clock in the morning, our time. He says, can you get an infectious disease specialist to Heathrow at 8 o'clock in the morning to see this private plane that's coming with this boy that's sick? And I go, are you completely mad? And he goes, no, you have to do it. Okay, so I say, all right, I'll do it. So I call up, make 3 calls. I find somebody who's at the Wellington. He's got a private clinic. He's infectious disease specialist, one of the best in the UK. And give me his number. I call him directly and says, I've got this young boy landing. Can you see him? You can charge whatever you like.
Right.
And he goes, useless. Bring the boy to my clinic. We'll arrange transportation. We'll do all the blood tests. He'll be back in the plane within 2 hours. Right? So, and it all worked. It turns out it wasn't malaria, which is what we were afraid of. But that's the kind of network that you develop. And that can be very helpful.
Very helpful at the time that you...
that I need help, or when somebody else needs help.
Then it can be accessed,
Exactly. So when I get a community member saying, that I need this help, and then you say, okay, do you have private insurance? No, yes. Okay, how much can you, once you get an idea, then you say, okay, the best NHS consultant would be this.
That's right.
The best private person would be
that,
the best hospital in terms of its service would be this. If you have this sort of, this type of cardiac issue, you need to go here. I had a call, somebody called from Jordan. And I said, get here right now. Landed at Heathrow. I said, and which hospital? I said, don't stop at Hillingdon, go to Watford. He drove straight to Watford. I called the surgeon, had a CT scan, operated within half an hour, and the gallbladder had burst. He would have been dead.
Oh.
But that's, that is like, and so
yeah.
that's how you, the network that you develop.
Well, absolutely right. And it can be very, very helpful at the right time.
At the right time, correct.
Now, we haven't got much time. I have got one, it's 1 hour past very quickly. I have one final question and a request, because our community members are listening to you. What advice from your experience and specialist that you are, particularly in cancer, any advice that you would perhaps wish to impart upon the community members who are listening to you as far as the general health or well-being is concerned from the cancer point of view?
Yeah. I mean, the most important thing to remember about cancer is that, and it's early diagnosis saves lives, right? Now, that is a very important message. So if you get symptoms that is not you, that seems strange, always get it investigated. Always. Because the earlier you catch something, the more likely you are to be saved, right? Or have a longer, healthier life. I mean, a lot of us, me included, we put our head under the sand, thinking it's just nothing. So don't ignore what your body is telling you, and only you know how your body feels and how it should feel. So I think that's the most important message. The other thing is, there are cancer screening programs, mammograms, cervix smears, PSA tests, the colonoscopy, all of these tests, which the government offers, right? They're free to use. You should avail yourself of them at the earliest possible opportunity, because we know that if we catch, all these cancers early, right, that you can be cured of it. But what you have to remember is that when you have a screening program that the government is pushing, they're only going for the top 3 cancers in men and the top 4 cancers in women. They ignore all the others.
Right.
Because those are the biggest killers. And they're interested in the big figures. One person dying here or here, they don't really care. But when lots of people get cancers, and there are lots of them, then the expense is huge, right?
Right.
So the breast cancer, the prostate cancer, the colon cancer, the lung cancers
are given a full publicity.
Exactly. So, but like ovarian cancer, for example, there's only 6,000 a year.
For them, it's a very small number.
Yeah, it's a small number, right? And pancreas is even less. So to catch those other ones early, you have to listen to your own body.
That's right. Yeah. That's a very good advice.
Exactly.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
No, thank you very much. A wonderful advice, and I think that would be really welcomed by the listeners in our community. Thank you very much indeed. I really enjoyed this particular talk. I'm sure all of you would also must have taken a lot of gems that came out from this particular conversation, particularly in regard to cancer and how it behaves and how treatment can be done nowadays. It's an inspirational talk, Professor Anwar. And I have to say that, look, he had a concept and then a determination to carry it out, and then he carried it out and reached where he reached. And I think this also gives a lot of people an inspiration that, look, if you want to do something, think very high and then have a determination to do it. And if you do it, you can reach it. Am I right, Professor?
Correct. Right. Correct. I mean, the important thing to do is develop a passion.
Right.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And don't think about work as work.
Right.
Think about pay as being a reward for your passion.
Right.
That way, I tell you, you don't trade. You don't trade your time for money, because your life is worth infinite amounts.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
So, if you say, if I work this much, this is how much I get paid, then mentally what you're saying is my time is worth this much. And when people say my 1 hour of my work is worth £15, then you
have limited it.
Then you have limited it.
Yeah.
And that's like the worst thing in the world to do.
Think high. That's what it means.
That's philosophical.
Till next time, inshallah, we'll meet again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.